Do it without you. And you 50-yard line members, thank you especially to you for the extra. You know, you guys, and I haven't done this in a while, Rex, but I'm going to start doing this, and I'm going to start using it as part of our promotion, is getting a quote from our speakers who have come here the week before about their experience. So I asked Coach Alvarez, did everybody enjoy Coach Alvarez last week? Thought he was really good? Yes. I asked his secretary if he would, if she would ask him to give a quote, just say what was the experience like. He said, really enjoyed my time speaking to the Little Rock Touchdown Club. Club is enthusiastic, very knowledgeable about college football. It was a great and fun group to be with. So that's the kind of stuff that we love to get back, and I mentioned Steve Spurrier said the same thing. It's your energy that you bring to the room. It's your passion. It's the fact that we have men and women and the richest and the poorest. It doesn't matter. We all come together to enjoy the sport of football that we love. So thank you. Please join, too, the National Football Foundation, if you haven't already, for the College Football Hall of Fame voting, the Sports Hall of Fame voting as well here in Arkansas. Remember, next Monday, Barrett Jones, the, two-time All-American at center, won 3 national championships under Nick Saban. So that's next week. The week after that, Bob Stoops. I'm telling you, he's an Oklahoma guy. Bob Stoops, I think, is going to be a huge crowd. I think people, I can't get over how many Oklahoma fans there are here, Dari. Yeah, it's good, Dari said. So that is October 16th. Also, too, October 30th is the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame. And that just was announced this past week. So these are our inductees. And a guy who we see him here at the Touchdown Club, Freddie Marshall, Joe Ferguson, Dennis Winston. Those are our 3 in football. Basketball, Ron Brewer, Darrell Walker, Amber Sherry in basketball. Track and field, Edric Floreal and Cynthia Moore. And then posthumously, we're going to induct, looks like 6. Steve Little, Ronnie Cavness, Jim Benton, Billy Ray Smith Sr., Ware Schoonover, and Orville Henry. So all those names are going to be inducted. Is that not a great group of folks to induct? So that's coming up October 30th. Remind you, before you mute your phone and turn it off, that you can remind everybody they can watch this online at lrtouchdown.com, Facebook Live, the Touchdown Club app provided by Farm Bureau, and also 103.7 The Buzz is carrying most all the speeches they do each Monday. Do you want to thank our sponsors real quick? Dale Bennett, Twin City Limousine, and Greg Hatcher. Greg has been such a big supporter of this Touchdown Club. Greg, thank you so much. And Dale, thank you for the great service you provide each week picking up our speakers. We are proud to be called the Little Rock Touchdown Club, thanks to Gretchen Hall and David Russell at the Little Rock Convention and Visitors Bureau. CJRW, I had a chance last week to work with Mark Raines and Dan Sawyer. Rex, I had a chance to do a presentation to the Little Rock Trojan athletes. It was a really neat deal about the do's and don'ts about social media and planning for the future. So CJRW came up with that idea, and it's a great thing. So thank you for their creativity and their sponsorship of the Touchdown Club. 103.7 The Buzz, great to have Steve Johnson, our GM, and Henry Johnson here today. And we also have a new employee that I wanted to recognize. She is Marketing and Event Director, Paige Harrison. Let's welcome Paige Harrison for The Buzz here. The toughest part of her job is tomorrow she has to sit in with me, Tommy, and Roger. That's going to be the toughest part to see what we do in the morning. But great to have you on board, Paige. And thank you to 103.7 for their support for the Touchdown Club. And I know Justin was outside with Chris Kane doing an interview with Dari today. Do you want to thank Arkansas Urology? Arkansas Urology is the largest urology practice in Arkansas, 17 physicians. Ladies and guys, get by there and get checked if you haven't already. Please do that. Thank you, Scott Davis. War Memorial Stadium, if you haven't maybe had a plan for a meeting or a birthday party, get on over to War Memorial. They'll take real good care of you. Ron Sally and John Latch, they'll do a good job for you. Proud to have War Memorial sponsoring the Touchdown Club. By the way, did everybody see the 70,000 in attendance in Fayetteville this week? I wish whoever was counting in Fayetteville would have been counting at War Memorial when we played Florida A&M. Just saying. Just saying. Maybe I couldn't see without my glasses, but I don't know how they got to 70,000 up there, but so be it. I do want to thank Farm Bureau, Pulaski County. Give those folks a chance to quote some of your business, whether it be life, home, car, whatever. They're good folks. They're the ones who pay for our Touchdown Club app. Shauna Hopper, Todd Dennis. I do want to thank them, Stephen Reichard. Thanks so much. Dairy Queen of Arkansas. Go by and see the new location on 12th Street. They are on 12th Street and in Sherwood. So proud to have them in our first year here. The Touchdown Club. Jim Wealth Financial Advisors, John Shrewsbury, Janet Walker, Scott Emmon. Get ready for thefuture.com as a website if you got questions Look these folks up. They'll help you, whether it be for the legacy of your money for years to come or for right now. So I do want to thank Jim Wealth Financial Advisors for being a sponsor. The Big Red Stores, where are my Big Red guys? There they are over there. Over 20 years in business, the Hendricks family. Thank you guys for being a sponsor this year. Location number 36 coming up any day now, so it's exciting. Watch them grow. Thank you to the Big Red Stores. Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings, always great to have them here. You know, we always talk about what a great law practice they have, which they do. You heard about all the things they do law practice-wise, but the thing I love about Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings, they're also involved with the community. Big Brothers Big Sisters is one of the things they support, and Antoine Phillips, one of their attorneys, is a board member, and he was part of a big event last week where their big honoree that I was honored at a few years ago. So Judy, thank you to Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings for your support, not only doing great work in the community, but supporting others who are doing great work. So Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings, thanks so much, and for their support of the Cliff Harris Award. Crane Automotive, if it's time for you to get a vehicle, make sure and go by there and tell them you're a member of the Touchdown Club, and hopefully they'll take good care of you. 900 employees for Crane, based right here in Arkansas, based out of Searcy. 17 dealerships to choose from. Thank you to Larry Crane, Chris Crane, and Drew Dees. The Democrat Gazette, where's Wally at? Now, Wally said, listen, he said really good content to write about the last few weeks. So he said he's looking for you to bring something today, or he's going to make up something and get after you in some way. Yeah. Make up whatever you need. But great to have Wally Hall, the Democrat Gazette, and Amanda Copley. We'll have our All Arkansas Preps Player of the Week here. Not yet, Mike. That's all right. He heard the cue. But thank you to the Democrat Gazette for being a sponsor all these years. We appreciate them. And we couldn't be where we are without Simmons Bank. Chris White and Barry Ledbetter are here on the head stage today. Make sure when it comes time if you're going to have any kind of financial decision, give these guys a chance for some of your business. We could not be where we're at right now. And I know Dari he looked at the lineup and he saw Ditka and Spurrier and Stoops and said he fits right in there. And thank you all for still coming. Thank you all for still coming. But we could not have those kind of names, including Dari Nowka, without Simmons and your presenting sponsorship. So let's give a round of applause to all of our great sponsors today. Do want to thank Beth, Brent, and Heyman here at the Embassy Suites and their great support. Matt Johnson, who was doing our live streaming and our AV work back in the back, Local Fidelity 6. Thank you, Matt. Dwayne Duncan taking photos down here in front. Got something coming up here special in just a minute. Thank you, Dwayne, for the great work you do for the club. R.J. Hawk is still home with baby Addie, and he can't be here today, so we want to thank Chris Kane for helping us with social media from KETV. Remember, at LR Touchdown Club, at LR Touchdown Club is our Twitter account. I'm sorry about that. And our amazing ladies who check in everybody every week, and Debbie Wyman, our executive director, and the guys who helped set up. Let's give them a round of applause for their great work. Debbie, you're waving. You talk about the hard copy pictures. We got a lot of hard copy pictures. If you were on stage with any of our guest speakers the last 4 or 5 weeks, make sure and get those before or after the meeting. It's time for our All Arkansas Preps Player of the Week. Michael George is a senior running back from Conway. Michael, come on up. Last week he rushed for 351 yards on 31 carries. That's 11 yards per carry. He had 4 touchdowns. You guys won that game? Yes, sir. Who'd you beat? Southside. That was Southside. I hate to say, but they had a tough loss this week against North Little Rock. So with 24-14. But it wasn't because of Michael. Michael had 185 yards rushing and a touchdown. And as I mentioned, he's a senior running back. He's a great young man, and he's an AB student. And he hadn't decided where he wants to go to school yet, but we hope he continues to have a great season. Let's give him a Touchdown Club welcome as our Player of the Week. Great to have his dad, Michael Sr., here, and his sister, Elizabeth. Great to have him here at the Touchdown Club. I know his dad's very, very proud of him, and Mike got a little shy when I was asking, said, what do you want to say about your son? He just says he's a good young man and studies hard in school, and he's a great football player, so that's exciting. Did want to make mention, too, real quick, Rex, did you hear about the big excitement for the Broyles Award? Yes. The Broyles Award, thanks to KATV, is going to be carried live statewide on Channel 7, KFSM in Northwest Arkansas, and up in Jonesboro, KAIT, live the entire show. How about that? Is that not nice? Yes. So we're excited about that, and I know Molly and Betsy Arnold Brules are really thrilled about that. Thanks to KTV for stepping out there. And at this time, I want to do something real special before we bring up Rex. Saturday, I was up at the game in Fayetteville, and it was a win. I don't hear any negative. It was a win, and we covered the spread. But I couldn't be here for my birthday, for my mom's birthday. So, Mother, coming up real quick. I want the Touchdown Club. She moved from Panama City, Florida. Come on up here, Mom. Just come up front. Just here, Mother, come right here. Mother, come right here. Come right here. And y'all, you know, I had to get my mother. She moved all the way up here from Panama City. She dove in. She's a bulldog at the front desk. She's going to get your money when you check in here. So let's sing a little happy birthday. Here comes a big cake. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Carolyn. Dear Carolyn. Happy birthday to you. There's only one candle. Go blow it out, Mother. Go blow it out. Yeah, that's it. We're both on diet, so we're going to give it to everybody else after the meeting. But it says to my amazing mother, and what a wonderful woman she is. It's the greatest blessing I have to have a mom and dad that's so amazing, and so lucky and fortunate to have her here, especially what we see today in Las Vegas, to say, hey, I'm so thankful to have my mom here. And I missed being up in Fayetteville for her birthday, but thank you, Mom, for being an amazing mom. All right, it's time for the weekend wrap-up. There's a couple games I know we're really excited to talk about, aren't we, Rex? Rex Nelson, everybody. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thanks, David. You know, David was wondering about that 70,000 attendance. David, I've got an easy answer for that. As you know, people like to try things out, and Halloween's coming up. We had 20,000 fans disguised as empty seats. They did a good job. You know, Arkansas did what it needed to do. That's the bottom line. Hogs 42, New Mexico State 24. You score on 6 of the first 7 possessions. Take the drama out. It's nice not to have a lot of drama. Austin Allen passes for 264, 3 TDs. Jonathan Nance, 6 receptions, 58 yards, another 2 TDs. Arkansas outrushes the Aggies 230-11. That's right, they only allowed 11 yards rushing. And Arkansas leads, get this number, in time of possession, 41-35 to 18-25. Going to rarely find that in any college football game. So it's nice to get a win. It had been 30 days since the last victory, so it's nice to come in here on a Monday after a victory. Hogs are 2-2, headed to South Carolina. New Mexico State falls to 2-3. Now, let's move down to FCS before we go to the rest of the SEC. How about those UCA Bears? How about that victory? Number three, Sam Houston State comes to Conway, and they didn't remember the Alamo because they went down 41-30. Bearcats had won the previous 3 games against UCA, but the Bears built an 18-point first-half lead and hang on. Now, Sam Houston did pull within 4 at 34-30 in the fourth quarter, but couldn't get over the hump. UCA takes advantage of a drop snap on a punt. They get the ball on the 17, they score 2 plays later and put it away. Hayden Hildebrands, their good quarterback at UCA, 13-25 passing, 294 yards, 4 touchdowns. Bears are 3-1. Most important, 2-0 in conference. Sam Houston falls to 3-1 overall and 1-1 in conference. Now, in the biggest game to this point in the season in the Great American Conference, Ouachita, Dari, that's kind of the Arkansas version of Notre Dame, just so you know. Ouachita goes on the road and knocks off number 11 Arkansas Tech 35-31. Now, Ouachita trailed by 8 with just 8 minutes left. Drew Harris, whose dad is the head coach at Benton High School, Brad Harris's son, Drew Harris goes 34 yards for a touchdown with 7:18 left. A 2-point conversion fails, so Tech still leads 31-29. Ouachita holds, forces a punt. Drew Harris scores from 4 yards out with 1:36 left. Tech then drives to the Ouachita 18, but a pass is tipped away in the end zone on the final play of the game. So both of those teams are now 4-1. Elsewhere in the GAC, since we're there, Henderson has lost 4 consecutive home games dating back to last season. Southern Nazarene goes to 3-2. They shocked the Reddies, who fall to 2-3, 42-24. Now, I mentioned Henderson has lost 4 consecutive home games. They still have a 28-game consecutive road game winning streak, the longest in the nation. I don't think I've ever heard of anything quite like that. Harding started 0-3, but with a lot of new players, they're getting their mojo back. They moved to 2-3 as they drop UAM to 2-3, 56-46 up in Searcy. Bisons rushed for 474 yards, 7 touchdowns. They had 2 backs that rushed for more than 100 yards. There were more than 1,000 yards of offense in this game. Harding had 535. UAM had 507. Southern Arkansas 3-2, 56-27 over Gary's 0-5 Oklahoma Baptist Bisons. Mule Riders had 718 yards of offense. Did they not tell y'all you have to play defense at that school? 718 yards you gave up? Oh, great music program, he said. Barrett Ritter was 32 of 41 passing for the Mule Riders, 405 yards passing, 6 TDs to 6 different receivers. So what you have now, you have Southeastern Oklahoma alone in first at 5-0. Then among the Arkansas schools, Ouachita and Tech are 4-1. SAU is 3-2. Henderson, Harding, UAM are 2-3. Now back to the FCS. UAPB falls to 2-3 overall, 1-1 in the SWAC. 27-14 loss in Huntsville, Alabama to Alabama A&M, which is 2-3, but 2-0 in conference. NAI, Line falls to 2-4 overall, 0-3 in conference, 30-28 loss to Wayland Baptist. Line took a 28-27 lead with 52 seconds left, but they let Wayland drive back down the field and win it on a 41-yard field goal with 9 seconds left. Division III, Jim's Hendricks Warriors are 4-1 overall, 2-1 in conference, 48-42 victory at Mighty Sewanee, better known as the University of the South. They got as far as the Hendricks 11 at the end of that game before turning the ball over on downs with 10 seconds left. So very exciting game. All right, back to the SEC. How about Georgia 41, Tennessee nothing? I think most of us were picking Georgia, but I don't think anybody saw that point spread coming. Tennessee falls to 3-2 overall. They are 0-2 in the conference. Now, that was the worst home loss for Tennessee since 1905. You got that right. 1905 when they lost 45-0 to Vanderbilt. It's the first time Tennessee's been shut out, period, since 1994. Georgia, meanwhile, is 5-0 for the first time since 2012. You'll remember that Tennessee won on that Hail Mary last year. None of the past 6 games were decided by more than 8 points, but this one wasn't even close. Georgia's getting stronger by the week. And speaking of stronger by the week, Alabama's in a league of its own, folks. 5-0 overall, 2-0 in conference. Ole Miss falls to 2-2 and 0-1, 66-3 in Tuscaloosa. And the Alabama head coach still wasn't happy. I listened to his news conference on the way back from my game on Saturday night. Said Ole Miss had some big plays. I failed to find where any of those were. But that's what Nick said. So they must have had some big plays somewhere. You know, Ole Miss had won in 2014, 2015, but you know, only SEC team to beat the Tide since 2014. Handed Alabama its only home loss in the past 30 games, but boy, those seem like distant memories now, don't they, as Ole Miss is in the deep freeze. The margin of victory was Alabama's somebody got it. The margin of victory was Alabama's largest since 1979. Alabama has outscored its first 2 conference opponents this year. 125-3 is the margin so far. Florida moves to 3-1 overall, 3-0 in the conference. 38-24 victory over Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt started 3-0. They're now 3-2 overall, 0-2 in conference. But Florida loses quarterback Luke Del Rio to an injury for a second consecutive season. By the way, Florida now is 26-1 in its past 27 games against Vanderbilt. Auburn seems to be getting stronger. 4-1 overall, 2-0 in the conference. 49-10 thrashing of Mississippi State, which started 3-0, you'll remember. Now 3-2 overall, 1-2 in conference. The wheels seem to be coming off suddenly in Starkville. It's the first time since 1987 that Auburn has beaten back-to-back SEC opponents by more than 30 points. Jarrett Stidham passed for 264 yards for the Tigers. And how about Troy 24, LSU 21? Troy, the first team from outside the SEC to win at Tiger Stadium since UAB did it back in 2000. And you probably heard the clip. Coach O's quote, after the game was, oh, crap. So they're hanging him in effigy down in the bio country now. Coming back late, it was great. Y'all probably done this. I listened at midnight. I was in the car, listened at midnight to WWL out of New Orleans. There's nothing like those drunk Cajuns for entertainment calling in at midnight after a game like that. It was a lot of fun. All right, that ends a streak of 49 consecutive wins at home over non-SEC opponents since that 2000 loss. Troy goes to 4-1. LSU is 3-2, and it was not a fluke. Troy led 17-0 at one point, led 24-7 at another point. Aggies from Texas A&M go to 4-1 overall, 2-0 in the conference. They beat this week's opponent, South Carolina, which falls to 3-2 overall, 1-2 in the conference, 24-17 in College Station. Kellen Mond passes for 159 yards, runs for another 95, and Kentucky is 4-1 after a 24-20 victory over 2-2 Eastern Michigan. So this week we've got Alabama at Texas A&M, Ole Miss at Auburn, LSU at Florida, Georgia at Vanderbilt, Missouri at Kentucky, and Arkansas, of course, at South Carolina. Here in the state, we've got Mississippi Valley State at UAPB. Harding is at Ouachita. Arkansas Tech is at UAM, and Birmingham Southern's at Hendrix. So games in Pine Bluff, Arkadelphia, Monticello, and Conway. Get out and see a college football game on Saturday. Thanks, everybody.
All right, so great to have Dari Nowkhah here from the SEC Network. He's a guy that's is really, not only is he a talented guy, he's a big-hearted guy. And what we're going to do, we're going to let Jim introduce Dari, and then Dari and I are going to sit up and we're going to do some Q&A and then open it up to some questions. So, Jim, come up and give an unbelievable, glowing introduction to Dari Nowkhah.
Okay, today you in the audience really don't need me at all because all of you have been watching Dari on the SEC Network ever since he was signed to be the first anchor of the network 3 years ago. Now, show of hands, how many of you were here when Dari was our guest speaker on October the 20th, 2014? At that time, the SEC Network had only been in existence for 2 months. Got a picture of him here on the big board. All right, here's some quick history regarding our speaker. Dari was a self-proclaimed sports nut growing up. When he was only 14 years old in the 9th grade at Tulsa, he called Channel 2 at his hometown and talked to the sports director. That sports director invited him to come in and hang out for a day. Dari watched the director get the shows together. They went to a Drillers game. He watched the director do the 10 o'clock show, and he thought the sports director had a pretty cool job. Dari's dad was a graduate of the University of Tulsa and was an electrical engineer, but he had wished that he had been a doctor. So his dad told Dari that financial security is a good thing and you should consider being a doctor. Dari graduated from Tulsa Union High School in 1994 and found that he was good in science. So he entered the University of Oklahoma as a pre-med major. He went through his first chemistry class, and he quickly discovered that college chemistry class was a lot harder than high school chemistry. So with his love of sports, he immediately changed his major to broadcast journalism and graduated from OU in 1998. He's taken a long, twisting road to his current position as the head anchor of the SEC network. The road he traveled took him to one of the nation's smallest TV markets, way up in the northwest part of Montana, then to Lincoln, Nebraska, and then as the number 3 sportscaster at Tulsa's KOTV 6. He hired an agent, Steve Hers, in November of 2003, and 4 months later, Hers called and told Dari to get to Connecticut immediately because he had lined him up with an interview at ESPN. He had the interview on March 31st, 2004, and the rest of the process was excruciating because it took 10 weeks for ESPN to finally offer the job. Before the job offer was extended, Dari and his wife had decided to leave Tulsa for a variety of reasons. They had always liked Charleston, South Carolina, where they had gotten married. They both had the idea they would like to teach, so they had determined that if the ESPN job wasn't offered, Dari would give up the local TV thing, and they would move to Charleston, take out loans, get teaching degrees, and they would teach in Charleston. However, during the first week of June, he ended up getting an offer to go to Bristol, Connecticut as an ESPN news anchor. He then did SportsCenter and a lot of college football live and some baseball tonight. The one drawback was that ESPN job required that the couple live in Connecticut. In our speaker's own words, the weather was terrible, the cost of living was too high, and at the risk of generalizing, the people aren't the friendliest all the time. After 7 years in Connecticut, in July of 2011, he was named the host of ESPNU, the 24-hour college sports network based out of ESPN studios in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now he was able to relocate to a great city with great weather and great people. Most of you know that our guest has recently signed a multi-year extension to remain in Charlotte and to continue to be the lead anchor of the SEC network and its weeknight news and information show known as SEC Now. He also will continue to be a host on ESPN Radio. Okay, you've heard more than enough from me, so with an apology for copying the late Ed McMahon, here's Dari.
How about that?
Hey, I didn't even know most of that stuff, so thank you. That's an unbelievable amount of research.
You know, Dari, it's
Scary amount of. I don't want to know what else you found that you didn't use.
Jim could do This Is Your Life.
Seriously, that's wild.
It was great to have you back, man.
Well, thanks for having me back.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it 3 years ago. I always like coming to Arkansas. I feel like kind of a connection a lot of times with people of Arkansas that does not exist necessarily everywhere else around this conference. So no, and maybe it's because it's closest to home. I don't know, but I'm great to be back. So thank you all very much.
Yeah, how about that? Great to have him back. What we're going to do, we've got a monitor set here in front of us, the same monitor you guys see. And so starting off the program, I just wanted to I've got some images I want to throw out to you, Dari,
okay,
and for you to give some reaction to. And then once we get through going through these images, we'll open up some Q&A. And this is a guy who, this is his business to cover the SEC. So I think he knows things, the pulse in Knoxville, the pulse in Baton Rouge, and the temperature is much hotter in those two towns. But I thought in light, I had this on the back side of the program. And can everybody hear me with this mic? We're good? I thought with what happened in Las Vegas last night, Dari, that we start with this. And I want to start with family first. This is your family. I want you to tell everybody about your family, Dari.
That's my crew there. We took that about a month ago in Charleston, where we, as Jim mentioned, we love to go, and we live close enough to go quite a bit now. So me, my wife Jen, and then my son Nick, and my daughter Nala in the middle. And so Nick just turned 12. Nala turns 8 this month. And then my littlest one, Leighton, who just turned 5 August 31st. So that's my crew. And thank you. Yeah. That's us again. Yep. So, yeah, I wake up in the morning like all of you and see. In fact, I remember I was on Twitter and I saw it, and then I checked Facebook because I've got a friend that lives out there, and she was writing that she was safe and everybody's worried. I didn't really know what had happened or the details, and I'm listening to the radio. I'm listening to news radio, which I never do. I'm only listening to rock or sports stuff, and in the car, and I'm hearing these details, and I'm just like, I really don't want to leave today. No offense, I love coming here, but this was, it's hard to leave home and that crew that you just saw when you're reminded that the world can be so ridiculously cruel.
and something you shared with us the last time that I think is important, talking about dealing with something very tragic. I want you to talk about Hayden and Hayden's hope. To me, listen, he's a TV guy, which is really cool, and he gets to be around all these coaches, but what he's doing with this organization in honor of Hayden, I think is significant. I want you to share that right off the bat with everybody.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you doing that. Yeah, in 2011, just after we got to Charlotte, in fact, when we moved, Jen was 36 weeks pregnant, and we got to Charlotte, and on August 11th of that year, we ended up in Charlotte July 20th. August 11th, we had a baby boy named Hayden, Michael Noka, and he was born healthy, completely healthy. And we took him home 3 days later, and then 3 days after that, so his sixth day of life, he had a fever of 102.3. And as is normal with an infant with a fever, you just get that child to the hospital as quickly as you can, and we did. And they said, well, he seems to have caught some sort of a virus in his first few days of life. The thought was, let's get him checked in. 24 hours after the fever breaks, we can take him home. It happens. No huge deal. Yeah, scary, but whatever. And so really, really long story short, we never left the hospital with him. The virus ended up impacting his heart, and what it was all called was viral myocarditis. He ended up needing a heart transplant, and while he was on the transplant list, he suffered a stroke. At 36 days old, he suffered the stroke. The stroke meant that he was going to come off of the heart transplant list because infant or newborn hearts, they don't come around very often. And that's a whole other mind thing that you've got to understand, that if my child gets a heart, what does that mean? That means that somebody else lost it, right? So that was a pretty hellish time in my life. And after he had the stroke, we really had no choice but to let him go. And on September 20th of 2011, Hayden Michael Noka passed. So my wife and I wanted to do something. The story kind of gained some traction, I think, because of the ESPN connection. And I was updating people on a Caring Bridge website because people wanted to know how he was doing. And step by step and day by day, I was writing some blogs. And anyway, we were put in touch with an organization called the Children's Organ Transplant Association. They're based in Bloomington, Indiana, but they're a national network that financially supports families of children who are awaiting a life-saving organ transplant. Not necessarily the medical bills, but things like having to, transplant hospitals are not everywhere, right? You have one here in Little Rock, Arkansas Children's, right? That's in Little Rock. But they're not everywhere. So people essentially for weeks, months at a time are living away from home. They have to quit their jobs. They cannot pay their bills. They may lose their jobs. Things add up. And what CODA does is tries to let them focus on what's important, and that's the child and not so much the financial things that they're getting so far behind on. So anyway, Rick Lofgren is the president of CODA. He said, look, we'd love to have you help. Let's create a wing, essentially, of what we do. Call it what you want. You all raise the money. And any CODA family that qualifies under what we ask, we'll send you a list of those families. You give the money out however you want to. So we did. We called it Hayden's Hope. It's at haydenshope.org. Easy to go on there, check out what we do, donate. You can do it online any way you want to. There it is. Thank you. And we've been around for just under 6 years. We've raised almost $240,000. We've assisted over 40 families around the country. So anyway, that's what we do, and you know,
thank you. How
I
about
hate to
that?
start with all the bad news.
No, that's
you know.
are you listen, talking about win-loss records doesn't mean a whole lot when you hear that. Well, that's one of the things I've always been impressed with your family and Jen, and that you guys are committed to that. And if somebody wants to help, you guys want to log on, it's very easy to give. And so I salute you for doing that in honor of Hayden.
Thanks,
let's talk a little football.
Right.
I thought it would be good for not everybody gets to see the SEC network all the time. Not everybody gets to watch TV, so I thought it might be fun to just sort of cruise through some of the folks you work with.
Okay.
And let's just sort of give top-of-mind reaction.
First thing I think of.
First thing you think of when you see this face. There's Paul Feinbaum. Tell us about Paul.
What this is, to me, the single greatest media phenomenon of at least our generation. How Paul goes from a newspaper writer, right, to radio in Birmingham for 30 years, to a television network, a national television network. And people literally will watch this thing for 4 hours at a time. It's now 5, by the way, if you've missed it. 5 hours at a time and listen to the opinions of people who they claim they would never be like, right? I wouldn't call that show. I'm not Phyllis. I'm not Jim in Tuscaloosa. I can't believe this has become what it has become.
Yeah, but he's, you know.
Smaller than me. He weighs about 130 pounds. He eats lettuce for every meal. That's Paul.
Wally goes back with him a long time. It is an amazing story what he's been able to accomplish.
It's
All right, let's
unreal.
go next image.
Peter.
Peter Burns, that's your number 2, right?
Yeah, Peter Burns refuses to say the word Mississippi. It's Mississippi. He says it's supposed to be Mississippi. He won't say LSU or Tigers. It always has to be LSU Tigers. He's from Baton Rouge. This is his first TV job. He's done radio his whole life.
Wow.
He's cool. He's fun. He wants to work all the time. They're having a baby this month, their first, and he wants to work so much he'll probably take about 2 days off and come back.
Next up, a new face,
Laura.
Laura Rutledge.
Yep.
What about Laura Rutledge?
Laura Rutledge is great. I never see her. She's never in studio. She was hired to mostly be in studio, but now she does sidelines for ESPN Thursday Night Football. She's hosting SEC Nation now. She's great. Florida Gator, married to Josh Rutledge, who plays for the Red Sox. Kind of a utility guy. They live in Atlanta. In fact, she's never in Charlotte. She just moved back to Atlanta, where she lived for a long time. Super cool. She does an hour a week with Paul, bless her heart. So
Right.
that's Laura. Laura's awesome.
Speaking of another athlete, Maria Taylor, who's
Maria.
now actually with ESPN.
Yeah,
now.
MT. Yeah, MT started with us. It was, in fact, the first night of the network, August 14th, 2014. She and I and Brent Musburger started the first show.
Wow.
She was a host with us. She's amazingly talented. She does sideline. She's the #1 basketball sideline reporter, so you'll see her all season in basketball for ESPN, and she does sidelines for football. She'll host some stuff in Bristol. She's as talented as anybody I've run across.
Next, the #1 name, Booger McFarland, who was at LSU. Tell us about Booger.
Yeah, that picture, he looks pretty good. He's probably dropped another 40 since then. The guy's losing. He's gonna look like me pretty soon. Right. Boog Night, Boogalicious, Sir Boogalot. I call him Bristol Boog now. He's kind of become a Bristol thing now.
Yeah,
We don't
he's
really
on
get him
ESPN,
anymore.
yeah.
He's awesome. He texted me. This is not for public consumption, although I know we're on the radio. He texted me Saturday night during LSU's game and said, "Man, we are bad." And he takes it pretty hard, and he's right. They are bad.
Speaking of LSU, another LSU guy, Marcus Spears.
Not pleased with the state of his program. Marcus is hilarious, absolutely hilarious. We have a green room, and it's just like it's a nice leather couch and then leather chair. And if he is anywhere in our zip code, you're not allowed to sit in his chair. Okay, he's got one of the corner chairs in there. You don't sit there. I sat there on a dinner break. They did SEC Nation on a Saturday 2 weeks ago. I didn't think he'd be coming into the studio to hang out with us on Saturday. So we have our dinner break. I sit in Marcus's chair. He walks in. I'm like, "Yep, gotcha." He's one of a kind. Have you watched his show with Greg McElroy?
Not yet.
On Mondays, Thinking Out Loud? Like, I'll tell you what, that is really good TV. You're basically sitting in there with him and Greg, and they're just talking football. And he is hysterical.
What about Joy Galloway, an Ohio State product?
Yeah. Wears jeans all the time, refuses to wear dress pants.
Oh, really?
Refuses to tuck in his shirt. He's basically said, "This is me. This is what I'm going to do." Most of the time on TV, you don't see it. On occasion, you can catch it. I worked with him a little bit in Bristol before I moved to Charlotte, but not very much. He's pretty serious, but he does a good job. He's one of those Buckeyes. Did you know Oklahoma beat Ohio State this year? I don't know if you guys know that.
Next up, Greg McElroy, who I think was the quarterback when Barrett Jones turned around and went face-to-face with him. We'll talk about that next week with Barrett Jones, if you remember.
Yeah.
During the national championship game.
You're right.
Barrett Jones got up, and they were winning by 20, but they got into it right there.
You are going to love Barrett, by the way, next week. And I'll tell you about Greg in a second. You're going to love Barrett next week. We auditioned Barrett, and he ended up getting a few games with us. But I knew Barrett really well 5 years ago when he was a senior at Alabama. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. We had him on our show, College Football Daily, on ESPN News every week, and he's awesome. You'll love him. Greg, So smart. He apparently got a 49
Smart or
out of
cocky?
50 on the Wonderlic.
Smart or
Oh, he's
cocky?
not cocky at all.
Not at all?
No. No, couldn't be less cocky than. Yeah, no.
So that rumor's not true.
No. If that's a rumor, which I haven't seen, he is not cocky. He
Clint
is.
Sterner mentioned that. No, I'm just
He's-
joking.
oh,
I'm just.
I don't believe you're joking.
I'm joking.
He's really smart. He cannot give an answer to a question in under 2 minutes. So if you've got Greg, we do shows like with Greg and Marcus. If I'm going to fill 5 minutes, I need one good question. That'll fill 5 minutes between those two. He does a radio show on Sirius XM. It's on 6 to 9 every. Yeah, it's really good with Taylor Zarzer. So
What about this bulldog? A very sharp guy. We've had him on the bus. Matt Stinchcomb.
have you had him here?
No, but we're gonna. Yeah, I think Bo's got him up Northwest Arkansas
Yeah.
this year. I already had him. Yeah.
You would never know this from watching him because he's very serious. He has a serious disposition. One of the funniest people I know. He can impersonate anybody.
I heard it. He does a great Spurrier.
He does a Spurrier. He does a Mac Brown. His best one is, Gene Wojciechowski for ESPN. You ever listen to him? So he has this incredible Gene Wojciechowski. He does one where Gene is interviewing Mac Brown. And he's both parts of it. And not only is he both parts of it, one will interrupt the other. So he'll be Gene, and then he'll break right into Mac, and, well, Gene, and then back and forth. And so what he does is, if we all know this, if our phone rings and it's Matt Stinchcomb, you let it go to voicemail. Because he apparently has a job in Atlanta. He runs a company in Atlanta of some kind. But he got a lot of downtime. So he gets bored, and he walks into his conference room, and he calls. And if you let it go to voicemail, he will leave you about a 2.5 to 3 minute voice message as somebody. I have one saved on my phone from Spurrier.
What about this next guy everybody in this room knows, Tim Tebow?
Tim.
What's it like to be around him?
Tim's great. Tim, I got to know Tim pretty well and immediately felt bad for hating him when he was in Florida. I don't know why I hated him. He was really good. I got sick of hearing about him. Our company, we know what ESPN did to Tim Tebow when he was playing in Florida and essentially made him maybe the greatest player that ever played football. And he could be in that conversation in college, but not in the NFL, obviously. I got really sick of hearing about Tim. And then I got to know him and actually feel a little bit bad for him. He can do nothing on his own. And I don't mean he doesn't know how to go to the store and get cold medicine if he feels bad. He literally can't. He can't fly by himself. He can do nothing without constantly being stopped, harassed, and he's incredibly cool about it. But I don't know a celebrity to his degree or anybody that matches the celebrity that I know in Tim. But he's actually really down to earth.
What about this next guy we all know, Clint Sterner?
Clint's awesome. I was texting with him earlier today. He's down in Houston. I thought maybe I could run into him here, but Clint's awesome. What I love doing is going to Fayetteville with him. I remember him well as a really good quarterback. It's hard to shake the 1998 thing against Tennessee, and he always talks about how it's hard to shake that. He told me a story once. I don't know has he told you guys the story about Phil Fulmer?
I'm not sure. I think go ahead.
So I'll tell you the story. He would tell it much better. But probably, 8-9 years ago, he's in Nashville, and he's out having a couple of beers at a bar. And he runs into this lady, this girl, I'll say younger, probably in her 20s. And they just kind of start talking, right? And she goes, "No, I know who you are. I remember your Arkansas quarterback. You played with the Cowboys." And he's like, yeah, all good anyway. What do you do, And so she starts talking, and then her phone rings. So she answers her phone. She's like, "Pardon me, I got to take this." Gets off the phone a couple minutes later. She's like, "I'm really sorry, really sorry." He goes, "No, I hope everything's okay." She goes, No, that was just my dad. My dad's Phil Fulmer." "Oh, really? Well, I hope he's doing well." She goes, "No, he's doing great. And he told me not to let you buy a single drink tonight."
That's good. And our last person from the SEC Network,
the
Pat
shooter.
Bradley, the shooter.
I love talking Arkansas with Pat. So when I was here 3 years ago, I did the radio show with him and Justin. And I remember him. I was a college student at OU when he was playing at Arkansas, and I remember him. I'm a basketball fan as well, and I just remember the white kid from Arkansas who couldn't miss. I mean, it was unbelievable, and I didn't necessarily know he was from Boston and all that. So I come do the interview, and I'm like, my God, that accent. And I lived in Connecticut 7 years, so I'd heard it quite a bit, but holy smokes, especially down here, right? Well, he kind of pulled me aside, and he said, you know, what's going on with network analysts for basketball with the SEC Network? And I said, I don't really know where we stand, what we're looking for, or if we're even looking. I went back to my boss, Stephanie Drewley, who runs the network, and I said, Pat Bradley played at Arkansas. We don't have any Arkansas basketball talent on our network. Can we look at him? And at the time, she said, well, we're not really looking to hire anybody right now. We like where we're at. I said, okay. And she goes, just remind me maybe this time next year, let's see. So the time next year came around, and I said, you know, we have any openings? Is there anybody that we could look at? And she said, and I said, because I think Pat would be good. He's funny. He's got a great personality. He's really personable. And I think the accent would play pretty well, actually, on the SEC Network because it's so different, right? You have to listen so hard to understand him. That's a good thing. And she goes, have him send me his stuff. And so I said, get her your link. And eventually he got hired, and he's one of our best ones.
Yeah, I think he's got a great upside, too, even more. This next one, let's do this. Matt, go to the Legends page. Before we jump into the SEC football, I wanted to just get your take on a few legends. Vern Lundquist.
I wish I'd have met him. I never met Vern. I wish I had. I love listening to him. I'm a Brad Nessler fan. Nessler has that job now, and I think Brad's maybe one of the 3 or 4 best I've ever heard. But Vern was the SEC. I mean, when you turn on your television, forget what network it is, it doesn't matter. That voice, yeah, I'd certainly miss listening to him.
Speaking of voices, this is a little before your time, but I just thought you'd get your take on Keith Jackson.
Keith Jackson reminded me forever of my grandfather. He looks like him. Now, my grandfather he passed away also in 2011, but was a 40-year season ticket holder for OU. And I think he's the biggest reason I became an OU fan. My mom went to Oklahoma State. My dad went to Tulsa, but I was a Sooner through and through. And I always remember, every time I saw Keith, my grandpa used to talk like him and kind of the slow drawl. Keith was, I said, one of the top. Keith was the best. I'd do anything to listen to him call a college football
game. A guy who grew up right down the street in Georgia from Keith Jackson. The next guy, obviously, Frank Broyles. And just wanted you to, a couple things. One, about, obviously, as a broadcaster, and, of course, Coach Broyles passed recently. Just some thoughts on Coach in general.
Yeah, another one I wish I had met. I never did get to meet him. You know, they asked me to voice what we call an obit piece that we ran on the SEC Network. And it was written for me to essentially read, but I knew enough about him that I didn't just take the script and read it. I did a lot more research on my own, and we just kind of played with that a little bit. But what he accomplished and the many roles that he had to slide from an AD to somebody that was as successful as he was on television, the number of national and conference championships, 50-something national championships that Arkansas won in various sports under his watch as AD is a staggering number. But no, I never got to meet him.
Let's go to the coach's page, Matt.
Oh, this is not.
All right, let's go to
You're making me nervous here.
No, so give us your thoughts on Coach Bielema. It's 5th year in the program. Your thoughts?
My closest friend in this business is Bret Bielema. He and I became pretty tight when he was still at Wisconsin, actually, and we talked a lot over the phone over some years, and then he came to this league, and I was ecstatic. I think he's an unbelievable coach, and I know this. While I think it might be fair to question getting away from what he's always done, which is run the football. I'd like to see them get back to that. I've been to Fayetteville many times since he's been there. The lack of transfers, the lack of what he'll never do is what I think Butch Jones has done now. We can probably talk about that when he pops up at some point. He's never lost a football team. He has nothing but respect from every single one of his players. And I think that Arkansas fans, and I realize that I'm in a room full of them, should be a little bit careful with wishing him out the door too soon. And I understand that he's had time. You are never going to find somebody who I think will represent the school better. What he is the most real human I've ever known as a coach, which is why I'm gotten close with him, because I know him. Most coaches don't let you in to their world like that. I understand if you go 5-7 and something has to happen. I understand the business, but what I love is when Jeff Long says we're not going to be a win-at-all-cost thing. What that tells me is we're not bringing back Bobby Petrino. I don't care how bad you all want him. That is not a quality human being. Brett's a and I say that, and I'm not trying to be funny. He's not. Brett is a phenomenal human being.
Tell us how you really feel, Dar.
I've said this many times. I know too much about him, and quite a lot of it from him, and a lot of it from the guy that followed him at Louisville and how he's treated people over the years. And that's a good guy right there.
All right. Speaking of Razorbacks, next one, Austin Allen.
If he had any protection, he's potentially a first-team quarterback in this league. I thought that going into last season. I said he may be the best quarterback in this league by the time the year is said and done. Protection let him down. It's let him down this year a little bit. He's incredibly talented. He's going to get a shot in the NFL. I don't think there's any question about it. Yeah.
Obviously, story of the weekend. Next, Coach O.
What's that buyout again? I'm trying to No, it's going to be a highly questionable choice at the time. People that defended it were people that I think all would have taken Tom Herman if he would have said yes to them. They love the fact that they stayed in that LSU family, but I don't know that he's ready for this. He threw Matt Canada, his offensive coordinator, under the bus a little bit last Saturday. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Basically saying if I'd have known so-and-so was going to be carrying the ball on the first play, I would have never let that happen. That tells me that you probably should have known. However, you got to find that out. But the first play of the game, aren't those scripted typically in advance?
Yeah.
LSU's a mess. I think the worst part about them is that they're getting shoved around on both lines of scrimmage by teams like Troy and Syracuse. And it's going to be hard for him to stick around. The only problem is the administration that hired him is going to be too darn stubborn to fire him after 1 year. But I think that he's got that program going in the wrong direction.
Another hot spot in the SEC.
Oh, see, look at this. Arkansas, you could be them, okay? Just remember this. Like either of these last two. Captain Cliche, right? I mean, isn't that what we call Butch? Team 121, brick by brick, right? That's kind of what we have here. And bricks are crumbling. As Booger, like previously shown, Booger McFarland likes to say, at some point, those bricks ought to build a house that you're ready to live in. I don't know when that's going to happen. I think he's lost his team. I think they quit. A lot of people that have talked to people there, I'm kind of going third hand here, and I probably shouldn't suggest that he's not overly popular with many of the players there, and the time is coming. I actually thought I was going to get a phone call yesterday from my boss saying you need to come to work. Butch Jones has been fired. I think it's a matter of time.
All right, next. Gus Malzahn.
Gus. Don't know Gus real well. Little cliche-y as well. I work with Gene Chizik every week. Remember Gene brought him in as his offensive coordinator before Gus took his job. I honestly, I don't know much about Gus. I wish I did. I don't have a whole heck of a lot to say about Gus. The very short times I've ever spoken with him, I like him. He's
big win for them. They sort of bounced back.
They look good, man. Yeah. They look like, I don't know if it's Georgia Auburn or Auburn Georgia at 2. I tend to think it might be Auburn Georgia at 2. I'll say this: it's good to have 3 because the years we have 1 is not good for this league, and we had 1 last year.
Next,
Kirby. Like Kirby. Kirby is has all the intensity of Nick Saban, but he's a lot more likable. I don't know what I'm going to say about Nick when he pops up here.
he's coming.
I know he is. What a job he's done in year 2. He's recruiting his brains out. His defense is one of the best in the league. You could argue the best. I think Auburn and Alabama are obviously there with him. Really likable guy. I think he's just starting something that's going to last a long time there.
Matter of fact, I was just going to mention the trophy behind you. The last 2 coaches won that trophy behind you, the Broyles Award. Yeah, proud of Kirby and his success. Last slide here.
Nick, the Nick-tator. There are a lot of coaches in this league that I love to interview. He's not one of them. He's difficult. He's anywhere but he wants to be anywhere but where he is when he's talking to media, which is fine. I work with 2 guys that played for him. McElroy played with him, and Marcus Spears played for him. you know, they both say at times it was hell to play for him, but they both acknowledge that they got to win a championship because of him. They got a shot in the NFL because of him. And I'll tell you this, like if I had a kid and I thought he was like that I thought was NFL. My son runs cross country. He's not playing football. But if I thought there was a chance my son could go to the NFL, and I had a chance to have him coach him, I would.
Alabama and Clemson 1-2. Who are your other two in your top four if you had to name the playoff today? I know where what one of them's going to be.
You would think so.
Across the border? No.
By the way, thanks for playing Boomer. I was sitting here eating, and
you guys ever pay attention to the music, the music of the fight songs of all of our speakers?
Yeah, which is
you and Bob Stoops are covered with the Oklahoma.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there eating, and I'm like, that song sounds here. I had to think where I flew to today for a second. My other two teams, I would probably put them in.
Oklahoma 3
because they have a really, really good win.
Yeah.
But I'm
At
still
Ohio
Mike
State.
Stoops coaching the defense scares the hell out of me every time I watch them play. You know, I don't want to put two teams from this league in, but I think that Georgia has been more impressive to this point because of who they've played than Penn State. Though Penn State looks really, really good. We're not going to have two teams from this league in. It's just not going to happen that way. But you ask me right now, I'd probably go Georgia 4, but I think Penn State is close. I think Washington's pretty good. Before the season, those of you who root for Oklahoma may not want to hear this, but we picked our playoff teams, and I put Oklahoma State in.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard you do
because
that.
because I thought they would, and then
I had a lot of Oklahoma fans get mad at you, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm going to Oklahoma in a couple of weeks to speak before homecoming. I expect to get some of that back. Yeah, a little bit, probably.
Which is the better conference? SEC, ACC, Big 12, Big 10. Rank them. Pac-12.
Yeah. It is Florida State being down hurts the ACC. I don't know that any of them are that good, top to bottom. To have three legitimate top 10 programs, I would probably say the SEC. Kind of cringe a little bit because I don't want to do that. I don't want to come across as that person.
That is who you cover every day.
Right.
So
well, but the bottom line is this now. Every Saturday night, when we're almost done with the shows, right, or we're off the air for a while, Chiswick, Chris Doring, myself, and our producer, Brad Buchanan, independently make a list of 1 through 14, rank the SEC teams in order. All four of us said we got through 7, and then we're stuck. Because the bottom 7, none of them are very good, right? And unfortunately, Arkansas was in that mix. I put them at 8, but it showed us that, wow, you put pen to paper here, the top 3 is easy, whatever order you want to go. Then you've got another group of 4 that are really good, or good. But you've got 7 teams in this league. Half this league is, quite frankly, not good, which is really bad for the overall perception of the conference. But having 3 really good teams probably gives them the advantage.
If you had to put your vote today for the Heisman, Saquon Barkley or Baker Mayfield?
I'd probably go what Barkley's done on an individual basis, which is what that award is. I would probably go Barkley. But competition is going to get harder for him. I think Baker's on a path to get it. I wouldn't be surprised if the final vote went to him. But I think it's fair to say Barkley. Although, are you seeing what Bryce Love has done at Stanford?
Yeah. For those who don't know, running back at Stanford is the 5th highest all-time yardage total in the history of college football. Yeah.
Through this number of games.
Through this number of games, correct.
He replaced Christian McCaffrey, who's a Carolina Panther, down the road from me. He went for 304 or something. He's averaging 220 yards a game, I think. He's making his way up that list. And I think as well, Jalen Hurts is kind of quietly creeping into that mix too.
What are the Razorbacks? What's their record at the end of the year? Now listen, it's tough because about half the games other than Alabama are, and maybe not Auburn, but
I don't think you can win Alabama or Auburn.
Right. So those are the rest of that would be
the rest of them are possible.
What'd you say? That's 4 losses. So.
I will say 6-6 going into a bowl game. No? Disagree?
He's not
No,
happy.
you're not. I know. Are you? Is it time for a change in your mind? No. Oh, okay. Yeah, you can tell me if it is.
He's got a baby.
Yeah.
Right?
Look, if it happened, he'd be fine. What is $15 million buyout? I guess is what
Yeah.
it is.
What do you think about the whole buyout? We had Barry Alvarez last week that said bad business model. We don't do it at Wisconsin.
They don't?
He said they do not. They don't have a big guarantee buyout.
They just say if you're going to go somewhere else, go somewhere else.
Small. Yeah. It's nothing like where they.
Just
He said,
get
I
out.
don't want to strangle my university.
Yeah.
With the-
It's
It's cost of doing business, but not a great business model.
it is the business. I don't, Chiswick, and it's a public record. So he and I were talking 2 weeks ago. He's like, I made $22 from Auburn. I earned half of it without working there. That's $22 million.
Yeah, you
It's
said $22. You meant
Or
$22 million.
I made $22
Yeah,
million
to make
bucks.
that-
He was getting paid 3 years after he was done there. 3 years.
Yeah,
He's getting ridiculous-sized paychecks in his mailbox. 3 years.
that is not a good business model.
It's not a good business model. But I'll say this: college head coach, one, they start from a place where they are making nothing, right? Two, maybe I'm talking about more of the money that they're making. They have to work and be incredibly successful for a long period of time before they are able to do that. So, you get them there, they've earned the right to be there, yes. But you are able as a program to be successful enough to bring in a coach that you want. I wouldn't want that coach walking out the door for nothing either. I don't care where the money, I don't care where the money goes, but I want some level of security that says, wait a minute now. You're going to recruit. So, first of all, you're going to be out telling the kids that are coming to my university to come here. They're going to want to come there. They're going to want to think that you're there. I'm going to do my job as university to help them have you there as long as we can keep you there until we determine it's not time for you to be there anymore. I don't have an issue with the buyout.
You guys make that kind of money at the SEC Network? No.
Chiswick is if he's still getting paid, but from Auburn. But I think that expired.
That's good. Time for a couple quick questions.
Yes. Did I go too long?
Johnny from no, you're good. Johnny from El Paso.
Oh, goodness, yes.
Only
That's a great question.
Johnny from El Paso knows.
That's
the name.
amazing, Johnny.
Yes, he's amazing.
Okay, so
who is this
Bill
person?
Tegans. When I was at OU, I interned at the CBS affiliate in Oklahoma City, KWTV Channel 9, for 2 semesters. My mentor there was a man by the name of Bill Tegans, who was the sports director. He had previously worked in Tulsa, so I remember watching him as a kid growing up. Bill was, if you remember the Oklahoma State plane crash in 2001, killed 11 people. One of them was Bill. He was the play-by-play voice of the Cowboys. If he were still with us, how would he see the changes to ESPN and company? I think he would have been old school. All of us that are old school say, why can't we still do scores and highlights? And why do we have to keep doing this first take stuff and the new 6 o'clock Sports Center and opinion-driven content? I don't watch it, but it doesn't mean it's not the right business model. And Bill would probably say the same thing. Bill was a family guy, and he's going to be probably more like me. As long as my wife and kids are taken care of, I'm good. You guys got to do whatever you got to do. I'll plug along, work as hard as I can, and that would have been Bill. Bill was the best.
Do you want to mention one of the best guys that could be in Bristol, Connecticut today if he wanted to? Steve Sullivan. Let's give it up for Sully back there. This guy right there, Dari, could be anywhere. Could be anywhere. As good as anybody at ESPN. I'm telling you, he's that good.
And I'm sure Steve is, and we've got a lot of really good sportscasters at local.
Some people like you said, choose to be in a local market.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more question. We'll wrap it up. I thought I saw one more hand.
Yes,
yes.
sir.
Bob Stoops coming to speak in retirement.
I'm really curious to hear what he says to you guys. In fact, I'm going to probably listen in on that. Now, I don't know him well, but I know him some. I texted back and forth with him a little bit after the decision was made. He convinced me, and he convinced everybody else that it is not a health thing. I know him enough to know this. I know him enough to know that he can live without football. I know it's hard for him because his father passed away coaching high school football. He did not want to be that. He did not want that to happen to him. Loves his wife, loves his kids, Financially is obviously set. He can do without this game. At some point, maybe all the kids are in college or beyond. He gets an offer he can't refuse. Maybe he's got this burning desire to coach in the NFL someday. Maybe Notre Dame is appealing. I don't know. I don't necessarily feel like it would be. On a scale of 1 to 10, if he got back into coaching, my shock level would be at about a 4. But I don't think it's going to be for a while.
The website is haydenshope.org. And do we enjoy Dory Noka today? Great job, Dory.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. You
Jones
guys are
next
awesome.
week. If you want to get your picture made with Dory, just line up to the side and we'll get you done. Great job, buddy. Perfect. We'll get you up on stage here. Unbelievably painless. Yeah, perfect. Just squeak back there, Dory, and we'll get you lined up.